Violence during any form of protest is completely unacceptable. You know I have been consistent on that, be it BLM, anti-lockdown or Extinction Rebellion rallies. But the shocking and widespread riots across Europe this weekend, shamelessly being largely ignored by the mainstream media, are an inevitable consequence of medical freedom being extinguished and health apartheid ushered in under the guise of COVID public health. Surely this civil unrest erupting in Vienna, Brussels, throughout the Netherlands and closer to home in London and Belfast should be leading the news over the world. When the murder of George Floyd sparked new Black Lives Matter protests in the US last summer, it's all TV wanted to talk about. Despite the horrible murder having very little to do with life in the UK, officially one of the least racist countries in the world where the police are largely unarmed. The rage over government overreach through vaccine mandates and passports is fast creating a two-tier society that we may never be able to reverse. Yet the vast majority of the media and political elite are looking away. The question is not that the vaccine is largely a force for good. I have been open about the fact I have exercised my personal choice to be jabbed, taking into account my overall health. But I respect everyone making their own call without judgment. And certainly without the threat of losing their livelihood, freedoms, or from February in Austria being fined over £3,000 for breaking the law. To fundamentally alter the way we treat modern medicine by starting to enforce procedures on the individual in a free society is not just wrong, it's terrifying. Where does this end? Enforced abortions for pregnant women carrying babies with Down syndrome? Enforce stomach stapling for the clinically obese? And don't laugh and suggest this is all some mad conspiracy theory when the thought of democratic nations like Germany and Austria mandating a vaccine on its entire population, or Wales stopping the unjabbed going to a cinema, was also, not that long ago, considered a laughable conspiracy. Sajid Javid this weekend insisted the British government will not go down this path.
Do you ever accept compulsory vaccination in the UK?
No. I mean, it's not. I don't. It's up to Austria, other countries to decide what they need to do. We are fortunate in this country that although we have vaccine hesitancy, it's a lot lower than we're seeing in other places in Europe. But also, I just think at a practical level, taking a vaccine should be a positive choice. It should be something that if people are a bit reluctant, that we should work with them and encourage them.
But that is slightly disingenuous, given we are already experimenting with such an authoritarian policy in social care and the NHS refusing to take into account scientific realities like natural immunity. Meanwhile, in Australia, army personnel is now being used to transfer close contacts of COVID cases in their Northern Territory to state-run facilities.
That means residents of Minjari and Rockall no longer have the 5 reasons to leave their home. They can only leave for medical treatment in an emergency or if required by law. It's highly likely that more residents will be transferred to Howard Springs today, either as positive cases or close contacts. We've already identified 38 close contacts in Minjari, and that number will go up. Those 38 are being transferred now. I contacted the Prime Minister last night. We are grateful for the support of about 20 ADF personnel as well as army trucks to assist with the transfer of positive cases and close contacts and to support the communities.
Just think about that for a second. If you happen to be a contact of a COVID case, you're being shipped off by the army to a government-run facility. How has a civilised democratic country gone so mad that this sort of behaviour is being treated as even slightly normal? Meanwhile, our mainstream broadcast media cravenly wants to follow suit, failing to accept that our Big Bang reopening on Freedom Day means there should be no going back, ever. But take this discussion on the Jeremy Vine show last week, where the concept of the UK following Austria and creating a permanent snitch culture where the vaccinated call the police on the unvaccinated leaving their homes was considered a realistic proposition.
Now, I have a lot of sympathy with what they're going to do in Austria, because I cannot understand for the life of me why people believe this rubbish on the internet, the anti-vax propaganda. It is deranged. We know there's figures from the Office of National Statistics that say, what is it? You're 32,000 times more likely to die if you've not been double jabbed from COVID. There's no possible reason, unless you've got underlying health symptoms, not to have the jab. But my worry about doing it is, how do you enforce it? Do you stop everybody in the street? Who's going to stop people in the street? We don't have enough police officers on the beat anyway. So how would you make it work in Britain?
Well, you'd do it through snitches, wouldn't you, Storm? That worked.
Makes me uneasy.
It worked in lockdown. We had people saying, "Get round, we can hear a karaoke."
Now let me repeat the facts for the folk like this who seem to have been struck down with COVID derangement syndrome. The UK, we're now an 80% jabbed society, one of the leaders in the world, and a quarter of us already have been boosted. Meanwhile, COVID has an infection fatality rate of 0.096% here in the UK, increasingly comparable to the flu. If you were talking about locking down the country again, or locking up your fellow citizens who have exercised a medical choice different to your own, then you're the one with the problem.